All right, welcome everyone. My name is Coach David, and I am your guide on our financial aid journey today. I am with Financial Aid Secrets, part of College Admission Secrets. Today it is December 18th, 2024, 1 week before Christmas, right? And I'm still here, okay? And we're here every week, right? And I'll kind of do a little bit of an intro about our organization in a little bit, okay? But today we're going to be talking about, seniors, right? We're going to be talking about understanding your financial aid awards, right, that have come out. Now, even if you were the most diligent of families and you turned in your FAFSA on the first day that it opened, the financial aid offices have not processed your information yet. So, the reason why I'm doing this particular training is because I want you to be able to understand your preliminary award. Okay, so let's kind of get into it. We'll get into kind of talking about that. Okay, again, the agenda every week, it's pretty similar, right? We're going to talk a little bit about who we are, right? We're going to talk about some financial aid news because there's a lot of new stuff out there. And then we're talking about the preliminary awards, right? And kind of like what you have to be wary about. We'll also talk about how our program can help you. Okay. So first off, who are we? We are here every week minus some major holidays. I know that there's a lot of families out there right now, and it's like, oh my God, December 25th is a holiday. Yes, unfortunately, next week we will not be here. Okay. But I was here the day before Thanksgiving, right? And I will be here the week after, right? So we are here every week, 6 p.m. Pacific time, right? We try to bring some issues that are kind of facing families in the financial aid realm, right? The one thing that we ask our families to do is stay engaged with us. If you have a question, reach out, right? Any way you can, right? If you're in our Facebook group on Facebook Messenger, reach out to me or Coach Joanna. You probably see her in our Facebook group there. Okay. If you're in our coaching family, reach out on Discord. Okay. Email, whatever you can, reach out to us if you have a question. Okay. Now, Financial Aid Secrets, I've been doing this for the past 16 years, right? The reason why I started all this, and I kind of sometimes I tell this story and sometimes I don't, but the reason I started kind of looking into financial aid and kind of what I can do to help families is because I had a student 15 years ago. Okay. 15 years ago, I worked with a student, right? I'm not going to name her, right? But she was a really good student, right? She tried really hard, right? She was had a lot of leadership positions. She was poised to go to any college she wanted to, right? And she got into her dream college. She got into Columbia, right? And then when their family got the bill, right, and got their acceptance, they're like, unfortunately, you cannot go. Okay. I didn't understand it at the time, right? I was a lot younger, right? And so I was like, what do you mean? Just take a loan, right? Yeah, you can go. But I didn't understand how that loan would affect that family for decades to come. If that family wanted to go to that school, they would have had to take out about $250,000 in loans over the course of 4 years in order to send their daughter to school. Okay. At even at the interest rate that it was 15 years ago, it was still around 7%. Okay. And at a 7% interest rate, they wouldn't have been able to make the payment. Okay. So that student ended up going to community college and then off to UCLA. Now, UCLA, no slacker, right? But she had to give up on her dream because her family wasn't able to find a way to finance their college education, right? And so I want to make sure that doesn't happen to any other families, okay? So that is why I do this, right? That is why we have financial aid secrets because I want to prepare families for what's ahead, okay? So before, I feel like some people come just for the financial aid news part nowadays, right? Because the financial aid news right now is pretty juicy. Okay. So I want to share a little bit about what's happening with financial aid and the news. Okay. Now, one of the things that has come out recently, and again, I'm not saying this is true or not true. I'm just saying allegations have been made and evidence has been kind of put out there. Okay. But there are new allegations in the class action lawsuit against kind of colleges that were, price fixing. There's allegations that there have been instances where quote unquote bribery or kind of preferential treatment of donors has happened. Okay. So the five allegations that have been made most recently, Georgetown, they said that they had a president's list of donors and if their students were applying to Georgetown that year. Okay. Notre Dame, one of the people in the administration of Notre Dame acknowledged that there was a preference on campus of people that had donated. Okay. UPenn, right? There was something called BSI, or a bona fide special interest case, right? What that meant was that, well, if the student got in, there would continue to be donations, right? Cornell, a little bit different, but Cornell had a connections review of the different applicants. If your dad was friends with the President of the United States, right, or the Secretary of the Treasury, or whatever else it was, they actually looked into students and their families and what type of connections they had, right? And then finally, MIT, right? This one is a little bit more specific, but someone on the board of directors at MIT or the board of trustees, right? It is said that they pressured an admissions dean to admit a colleague student. Okay, so there is more going on behind the scenes. There is kind of bribery that is happening. There's donations that are happening. Now, a lot of families are like, oh, well, now that I know that these schools are doing this, right, maybe I will donate. Now, the amounts being donated have not been revealed, but just from what we saw from Varsity Blues or this or that, it's in the millions of dollars, right? Now, is it necessarily bad from a business perspective to select students that their families might be willing to donate? From a business perspective, I totally see why they're doing it. From a moral perspective, I don't think it's not the right thing to do, right? But this is something that is out in the news right now, so I did want to share with you. Okay. Now, another thing that is happening in the news, right, is that colleges right now are a little bit scared. There's lawsuits coming up. There's this coming up. There's that coming up. But another piece of the puzzle is that for colleges to be eligible to receive, right, like student loans from the federal government, right? Or have their students get student loans, so on and so forth. One of the things that they have to do is that they have to report to the government student outcomes, as well as student like data on the financial aid usage that their students are using. But one of the things that I have seen is that during the last 12 months, colleges have asked for an extension 3 times, right? It was supposed to be due at the beginning of last year. They pushed it. Then it was supposed to be due during the middle of the year. They pushed it. Then it was supposed to be at the end of this year. And now they're asking to push it until July. Okay. So my question is, what are they trying to hide? Right? Why don't they just cough up the data? Right? Now, some parents here might remember this, right? Especially if you're in California. Heald College used to be a really big thing, right? It was a technical vocational school where you went and learned how to be, a dental hygienist or something else, right? A vocational field, right? That college is one of those colleges that got, well, not necessarily this, but this particular case, but they also were misleading their students. They were lying to the federal government about student outcomes. They were saying, oh, 90% of our students get hired, 6 months after graduation. That was not the case. And so a lot of people watching those advertisements on TV would sign up thinking that they had a career in front of them when they did not, right? All they had was a mountain of student loans. Eventually, Heald College and then Corinthian Colleges, which is like their parent company, went bankrupt, right? They paid all these fines and fees and so on and so forth. They paid settlements to their students, and they are no longer around. Okay. So colleges are scared, right? Lawsuits are happening. People are getting fed up with the way the system is. I personally have been fed up for the better part of a decade, right? But that is why we're here to make sure that, well, you guys don't have to deal with it. Okay. So as I say every week, right? If you are this person driving this Ferrari, you probably don't need me. Not sure why you're here, unless you had a free 30 minutes in your schedule. But if you're one of those families that say, "Oh, well, my neighbor didn't get it, so we're not going to get it." If you say, "Our family makes a little bit too much," "Oh, we own our home," right? If that is one of the things that you're saying to yourself right now, then you need to talk to me right away because it's probably not the case. Okay. Most families leave money on the table, right? If you walked into a car dealership and they offered you a discount, would you say, no, I do not want that? No, I would say, yes, I'll take that. And what else do you got? Okay. So today we're going to kind of talk about the preliminary kind of awards that are happening, right? But before we do, I did want to give a very brief overview of the new FAFSA because I see some new names here. Okay. So the new FAFSA, realistically, Nothing's changed, right? They changed the name of a certain page, right? They added like a new landing page so that when you click on something, it says, "Oh, congratulations," right? That's it. Nothing has changed. Don't worry about it. Okay. Again, I'm unimpressed. They screwed up the system. The system is actually still screwed up. A lot of our students, when I try to do stuff, there is a problem. And now let me tell you about what those problems are. Okay. More than ever this year, I have seen that FAFSA cannot match the identity of the kind of person that we're creating the account for, whether it's the student or the parent, and with the information that is in the IRS. Okay. Now, granted, the IRS still uses, I don't even know what those printers are called, but they use paper with like holes in the side and then it goes, they still use those printers. So they're not really up to date with technology, right? But one of the things that I have found is that the IRS data and the FAFSA are not able to match a lot of families' names. Now, normally, right, if it was one or two families, right, and like the parents, they had a really long name and it didn't fit all in, right? Or they're from a different country and like their birthdays were kind of messed up when they were coming over, right? Then I understand. But this has happened to more than one or two families, right? And just within the population of students that I'm working with, the number of technical issues that I've seen is way too many. Okay. So there are still problems with FAFSA. They've had multiple years to fix this. They have not done it yet. Okay. So now let's get to the point of today's training, and it's understanding your awards. Okay. So, like I said, for this year, because of the delay with FAFSA, even if you turned it in on the first day, it's still not processed. So everything is considered preliminary. Okay. Now, what does that mean? It means that it is not final, right? Now, I will tell you what I saw last year. Last year versus any other year, and this was the first year that FAFSA had ever been delayed, right? I saw that colleges sent out higher than normal preliminary awards, right? And then when they received all the paperwork they needed, the FAFSA, your W-2s, 1040, so on and so forth, then they lowered it. Okay. So the one thing that I will say is this: take everything you see with a grain of salt. It is not final yet. Okay. There is a high likelihood that the amount that you're getting on your preliminary award is not the amount that you will have on your final award. Okay. But why is that okay for most families? Well, unless you're applying early decision, it's not really going to factor in. Okay. If you are applying early decision, again, you have to take it with a grain of salt and think that there might be a change. But for those that filed or that turned in their applications early action or regular decision, well, you're going to be able to see what the final result is later and then make a final decision by May 1st. Okay. Now, this is just a sample award letter on the right. Okay. So the next thing you need to do is look at your award letter, right? A lot of people just look at the last line. Okay. So here is why that is dangerous. Okay. So let's kind of look here, right? A lot of people, there's two kinds of people, like, let me put it this way. There are two types of people in this world, right? You go to a restaurant, you get your bill, you look at the last line. And then there are those people that look at every line item to make sure that it's correct, right? If you are one of those people that looks at what the total is, tries to calculate the tip in your head, and then just signs, this is for you. You need to make sure that you're looking closely at your award letter. So on the right, we see that the cost of attendance for this made up school is $62,700, right? If you're one of those people that says, oh, okay, well, my estimated balance of what I need to pay over the next year is $28,200, you are sadly mistaken. Okay. Now, if you are a line item person, then you're going to understand this a lot better. Okay. You need to look at each line. If you look at the financial aid, you see that $12,500 is given to you in a university scholarship. Okay. That's not money you need to pay back. That is free money. Remember, whenever we talk about financial aid, we have free money and we have loans. Okay. What I want to get you and what I'm trying to maximize is that free money. Okay. So $12,500, free money. The federal Pell Grant, $2,000. That's free money. Okay. So 14,000 or was it $14,500 per semester, right, is free money. So $29,000 is free money. Then here's what they do. They have loans. right? Now here on this sample, the loan amounts are less, right? They're a lot less, right? So it's about total 5,500 for the student over the course of the year, right? That's not bad. So even if you are a look at the last line type of person, in this situation, you would be fine, right? But what if you didn't look at it carefully enough and instead there were student loans and then there was also a $30,000 parent loan that they added into the financial aid too? Because anytime they're letting you borrow money, they consider that financial aid. Okay. So, what you need to look out for in your preliminary award is the loan amount that they're giving you. Okay. There will always be student loans and parent loans as part of the kind of award package that's given to you, right? So, if you looked at the last line and it said, oh, hey, you have to pay $10,000 a year out of pocket, right? You might be like, oh my God, that is so awesome. We're good, right? But if you factor in the line items and the loans that they gave you, which are also considered financial aid, that's another $5,500 for your for your student to take a loan out in. And let's say that there's another $30,000 parent loan that's in there. Your actual out-of-pocket cost is $46,000 a year, almost 5 times what you actually thought it was going to be. Right now, just because you're taking a loan and you're not paying it out of your checking account right now does not mean that is not out of your own pocket. It's actually going to be out of your pocket in 4 years, plus the interest that has accrued on that loan. Okay. So please make sure to keep that in account. Okay. The other piece I wanted to make sure that you guys understood is outside scholarships. Now, one of the things that I always tell parents when I have consultations with them is that outside scholarships, they might seem great, but they might hurt you in the long run. Now, those of you that have been to multiple of our trainings, you know what I'm going to talk about right now. Okay. But let's not ruin it for everyone else that's new. Okay. So, one of the things that these fine scholars that they got their scholarship from whatever thing it is, right? Here's what happens, right? Usually, let's say that you let's just use a case from last year. I had a student last year. They got into LMU. I was able to guarantee them $30,000. I got them $30,000 in financial aid. Their family was a high income earning family. Okay. And they told me, hey, we actually got a scholarship when we were in eighth grade for $10,000, right, to use on college, right? The first thing that I asked them was, how are they going to give it to you, right? They didn't really know. And so they contacted the scholarship organization. One of the things that the scholarship organization said was, yeah, let us know what college you're going into, right? And also, right, tell us what your student ID number is so we can put it into your student account, right? Now, what does that mean? That means that you need to give them your information, and then that organization will put a $10,000 check into your student account. Okay. Now, why might that hurt you? I will explain it here. Okay. These scholarships hurt you because the school that you're going to has a quote unquote legal obligation to adjust your financial aid depending on outside scholarships. Okay. So if you get a scholarship from an organization that says that they are going to send it directly to the college that you are attending, there is a high likelihood that your aid will go down. Okay. So if you actually look here, it says award total below there. It says if you are receiving any outside awards that are not included, please provide our office with the name and the amount of any additional awards. The reason why they want that information is because they are going to lower your financial aid. So let's go back to that example of my student that went to LMU. They were going to LMU. I got them $30,000 in money they never thought they were going to get, right? They had a $10,000 scholarship from eighth grade, right? That scholarship organization was going to send the money to LMU. Okay. What would have happened? Well, LMU would have received that money, seen it come in from a different organization and from that organization, right? They would lower your aid from $30,000 to $20,000. Okay. And then your $10,000 scholarship would be added in. Okay. So the net effect on your first year is nothing, right? You would still get $30,000 like you had gotten. But where it starts hurting is in year two. Okay. In year two, your baseline of what the school needs to give you would be set at $20,000. But that one-time scholarship that you got from that outside organization, it's not there anymore. So you lose out on that $10,000 in the second year and in the third year and in the fourth year. Okay. The reason, and a lot of people might be asking, well, why don't they just recalculate it the following year? The thing is that the financial aid office is a little bit lazy, right? And so what ends up happening is that once your baseline is set for the first year, unless there is a material change in your situation, they kind of go with that and give you a slight increase based on the increase in the cost of tuition. That's usually how it works, right? So, right, the question becomes, right, should we apply for outside scholarships? Should we not? Right? For the families I have consultations with, I can tell you pretty clearly if you should or should not, right? But there are a lot of families and a lot of parents that want their students to work for it, right? Try and put some effort into their own college expenses, which I think is great, right? So you can apply for them. And then if they say, yeah, where are you going to college? Send me your information. Then we can just not accept it, right? And the ones that decide you to send you cash or send you a check in the mail or deposit it into your personal checking account, that's fine, right? The other thing that I want to say here is this, right? Only take loans to the extent that you need them. You do not need to take the full amount of the loans that are offered to you. Okay. So if you only need like $2,000 and they offered you 5,500, don't take the extra $3,500. That's just going to accrue interest. Okay. All right. So quick takeaways here, right? So penny saved is a penny earned. Okay. Now I know it's a very trite kind of comment, right? But we want to make sure that we're getting every penny that we can from the financial aid offices at the colleges. Okay. So I know that students are starting to get their early actions back, their early decisions, right? There's even some CSUs and UCs that have already kind of sent acceptance letters as well. You want to leverage your acceptances as much as you can, right? You want to work with the financial aid office. If there's something that happened in 2024 that's an exceptional circumstance, right? Or kind of a new situation, please explain that to them so that you can kind of see if they can do anything else for you. The one thing that I will say is that you should not take your first offer as final. Okay. Now, at the state schools, not much you can do. Private schools, there is more that you can do. So the first aid offer you get is not your final one. Make sure. Okay. Now, I like to always kind of bring in cultural elements here, right? There is a saying, I am Korean, right? There is a saying in Korean that a crying baby gets an extra rice cake. Okay. So, unfortunately, I know that your students' crying days are over, right? As a baby, right? But I want parents and students to now go back to that, right? The more you whine, right? The more that you fret about your situation is going to add up to dollars. Okay. So make sure that you're taking opportunity of or taking advantage of every opportunity that you have. Okay. Now, I always tell people we can help, right? I don't know if people believe me or not, but we can, right? So just like today, we're going to make sure that we are kind of helping you guys maximize your financial aid, right? We want to make sure that you understand what college expenses are. A lot of parents are kind of like in the dark about how much it costs, right? And I talked to some parents like, yeah, it costs like 25 grand to go to a UC. And I'm like, which decade are you living in, right? So make sure you understand all those things. And most of all, I want to make sure that you guys talk to us so that we can tell you exactly the situation that you're in. Okay. Now, just a quick note, especially for the seniors, you should be checking your portals and your deadlines for financial aid, right? Now, you have to read very carefully. There's a lot of schools that say, "Oh, yeah, we want your stuff by this date," right? But want and is required are two different things, right? So if there's something going on with your situation or with your forms or this or that, I wouldn't worry too much, right? There are some hard deadlines that do need to be met, but otherwise, make sure that you're kind of checking on those. And then as far as like they might be asking you for things, you want to make sure that you're getting that information in as soon as you can, right? And so you should be checking your portals maybe once or twice a week to see if they're asking you for any additional financial aid information, like your W-2s, 1099s, so on and so forth. This list is pretty exhaustive. Okay. So I always like to share our success stories, right? And then we will get to our Q&A, right? But I was able to save this family last year, right? $44,000 in free money, right, to go to Penn, right? This student, I was able to save $18,000 a year. Again, the number seems a lot smaller, but you have to think about it over the course of the whole cost, right? It's just under 50%, right? And then this student was able to go to Pomona College for $57,500 off, okay? Cheaper than going to a CSU, okay? So if you do want to talk to us, right? And I think that almost everyone should, right? Again, our consultations are free. There's never a charge. I can tell you if I can help you. If I can, I'll tell you about our program. If I can't, well, then I'll send you on your way with some tips, right? But if you are interested in signing up for a consultation, I'm going to go ahead and put the link in the chat here. I'm also there's also a phone number here that you can text, right? So take a screenshot of this last page. If you are interested in talking to us, text FAFSA to 949-298-6234. Okay. Now, I also want to open it up to Q&A. I already see a couple of questions in the chat there, right? So if you guys do have questions about anything we talked about today or anything about financial aid in general, please go ahead and put it in the chat or in the Q&A, and I will make sure to answer it. Okay. So let us go ahead and see what these questions are. So the first one I have here says, federal student aid, do we give consent and approval necessary to give access to IRS? So the FAFSA previously had an IRS data matching tool, right? It was called the data retrieval tool, and it was very, very bad. Okay. And so I told most families not to use the data retrieval tool. Nowadays, they changed it. I'm pretty sure it's the exact same thing, but in order to qualify for any type of aid, you need to consent. There is no option any longer, right? So yes, you do need to consent, right? We have another question that says, if you work for a company that would give my kid a $10,000 directly to school, then it would be better to apply on second year of college, and I would set financial aid for a higher level. So I think your question is, if your company has like a kind of like employee scholarship for students, right? And it's a $10,000 scholarship, they're sending it directly to school. You have to remember the reason why they're sending it directly to school is for one reason and one reason only, and it's so that they can take the tax benefit, okay, for a charitable donation, okay? So the question is, would it be better to apply or take it in the second year of college? Would that set it up as higher? So yes and no, right? The first year is the most important. So yes, it would set your kind of your baseline a little bit high. It would set it higher. But as soon as it got that $10,000 got sent to school the second time, again, depends on the school and depends on how rigorous they're being that particular year. But they might decrease your aid. They might not decrease your aid, right? So if I was to give you advice, I would suggest that you do it second year. Okay. All right. So again, if you guys do have questions, and I know that there is about 50 people here with questions, right? That's why you're here, right? Please make sure to put them in the chat so I can answer them. Okay. And again, I'll put the link in the chat one more time here. Don't miss out on, talking to us, right? I know it's the holiday season, right? And everyone's busy, right? And the last thing on your mind is financial aid in college, but as you're out shopping and spending hundreds and thousands of dollars on Christmas presents, you should be thinking about what you can save on your college expenses. Okay. We have a question here that says, can you please show us the slide before problems and UPenn? I'm not sure I'm not sure which one you're talking about, but if you do want the if you do want your like a replay of this, we will be posting this on our private YouTube channel for our coaching families, right? And then for our Facebook group, I'm gonna make a post in the Facebook. You just reply there, and then Coach Joanna will make sure to get you that replay. Okay. We have another question here. It says, the decision for my daughter's ED school has not been released. When appealing, we are understanding that we cannot compare financial aid awards. So what would be the compelling reasons for an appeal? So if you are applying ED and you get in and you don't have any other schools to compare it to at that current moment, um, the only thing that you can really go off of is being like we can't afford that, right? Like that's impossible for our family. Here are our expenses. So if you line item them and give them a list of here are the expenses that we have each year, right? Our mortgage, our car payments, health insurance, so on and so forth. We just cannot afford this kind of large amount, right? Then they will either have to let you out of your early decision agreement or they will have to give you more money, find it somewhere. Okay. Here we have another question. It says, who should be negotiating with college financial aid office for more aid, the student or the parent? So this depends. Is your student 18? Well, parents, you cannot be part of the conversation at all, right? If the student is not 18, the parent can be there. So it should be, if the student is not 18, it should be a combination of the parent and the student, right? If the student is 18, unfortunately, it has to be the student because the financial aid office cannot even talk to you about the financial aid situation of an adult. Okay. We have other questions here. It says, ED, when do we get the financial aid offers? So it depends on where you applied, right? So if you apply to a school that is FAFSA only, right, then you're probably not going to get your financial aid award for at least, even if you did your FAFSA like 2.5 weeks ago, you're probably not going to get your award for another month at least, right? If they are a school that uses the CSS, right, or uses their own form, again, you should, if you turned in things by the right time, you should get your preliminary award with your acceptance or with your acceptance. Okay. We have another question that says, when is the FAFSA deadline for 2025 school year? Uh, the year throws me off, right? So if your student is a graduating class of 2025, the FAFSA deadlines depend on the schools that you're applying to. There's no general FAFSA deadline, right? Even though on the website, and I'm not sure why they do this because it screws with everyone, it says that for California, the FAFSA deadline is June 1st, right? But that is not the case. Okay. If you turn it in by June 1st, some schools will say, well, we ran out of money. Sorry. Try again next year. Right. So it is definitely not June 1st. Right. But you need to check on each school's website to see when their, priority days are or when their final day is, whatever that is. Okay. Here we have another question. When does the FAFSA open for class of 2026? We don't know, right? I wish I could tell you with certainty that it will open on October 1st, right? That's when it's normally supposed to open, right? But with the delay last year and then another delay this year that didn't fix anything, I don't know what's going to happen in the next year and if it's actually going to be open at that time. Okay. We have another question here. It says, extra docs like W-2, sign by pen is common. Are these requirements in FAFSA, IDOC, or college site? So the additional kind of pieces of documentation that are wanted by specific schools. That's why the slide that I had before was saying, I want you to go and check your applicant portals of every single college that you applied to. I totally understand. Your student might have applied to 30 different schools, but once or twice a week, you need to log into every single one of those schools to check if there are not additional requirements that they're looking for. Okay. It says my kid is 16 in senior year, so parents only apply for FAFSA. No, the parents are not the kind of important piece of the puzzle here. The student is always the important piece of the puzzle. Okay. So it doesn't matter if your kid's 2 years old or 16 years old and they're going to college, right? The student will have their account, they'll fill out their side, and then the parents will fill out the parent side. Okay. Just one parent needs to do it. Okay. We have other questions. I see the questions flooding in now, right? So one question creates a flood. So another one is, how does it work if a parent data is part of a student is 18? How can an 18-year-old talk about parents' financial details? So if a student is 18, right, the financial aid office and the admissions office can only talk to that student. They are considered an adult for all intents and purposes, right? If you guys want to talk to the financial aid together, you have to call them together, right? Or you need to provide that information to your student so that your student can talk to the financial aid office. Okay. If you as the parent try to call into the financial aid office and ask about your 18-year-old's financial aid, they're literally going to say, we can't talk to you about this. Have your student call in. Okay. We have another question. It says, in case we can't afford the fees for ED, how does it work because ED is binding? If you in all honesty, cannot afford the fees and the kind of amount that is provided to you by your ED school, your school will let you out of it, or they will increase your aid. It's one of the two things, right? Think about the PR disaster that it would be if a school said, you know what, we know you can't afford it, but this is the offer we're going to give you, and you have to come to our school because if not, we're going to sue you, right? You could go on every talk show in America and then you guys can make millions of dollars, right? So that will never happen, right? They're never going to force you to come. But if really you look at the numbers and your family just can't afford it, you need to talk to the financial aid office. Okay. All right. Next question we have is we haven't received any financial aid info for any of our schools. The portals are saying they're waiting for the FAFSA. We are one of your families. I contacted you last month and you said you're waiting to file. Yes. So just like how I said during our presentation, I would go into one FAFSA and I would run into tech issues. And then I'd be like, okay, maybe that's just a one-off situation. And I would go into another one. And then there's like an other problem, right? And so I haven't felt confident enough to turn it in yet, right? So if you are one of our students, yes, we are waiting, right? But we're waiting for a good reason because I don't want you to be in a situation where you are not getting your financial aid information in at all because there are situations where the FAFSA puts you in limbo. It's like processing and it's like it's submitted, but it's not like finalizing, right? There's a lot of different things that can be happen. Okay. All right. And then we have another question here. It says, can you share some suggestion recommendations for successfully negotiating for additional aid? So this is actually something I'm going to be talking about next week. So again, or not next week, but in January. So again, make sure to tune in. But just to give you a little sneak peek, right? One of the things that you should be doing is that you need to be comparing apples to apples and oranges to oranges, right? If you get into Stanford and then you get into UC Riverside, you cannot compare those two schools together, right? But if you get into UC Riverside and then you get into like UC, Santa Cruz or UC Irvine, and then one gives you more than the other and you're trying to pit them against each other, maybe that works, right? Or if you get into Stanford and you get into Princeton and you're trying to pit them against each other, that might work. But it all depends on the situation and the schools that you get into. Okay. All right. We have another question, and it says, "I'm already part of the CAS program, the coaching program. Is the financial aid and additional costs are part of the CAS program? So our coaching program is our college admissions program. We help you with like the kind of like college admission side of it, right? The financial aid side of things is a separate kind of is its own standalone kind of service that we provide to families because some families need it and some families don't, right? So if you're already part of our coaching family, please reach out to us in Discord, or you can follow that link to find a consultation so that we can talk about your situation and that we can kind of help you out, right? But for all of our coaching families that are here today, just know I am on top of things, right? I know what's going on with everything. There's a reason why there have been things that are not turned in yet because there are still problems, right? Again, I've tried to troubleshoot them with FAFSA. Just last Friday, I was on the phone for 5.5 hours trying to figure out the issue, and they couldn't figure it out either. Okay. So I was on hold for like 3.5 hours, and then I was trying to figure it out with them for 2 hours. I got their like most high senior technical advisor, and he's like, I have no idea. And I was like, then why did I wait on the phone for 3.5 hours? Okay. We have another question here. It says, my child got an offer for $22,000 a year, which is not enough since tuition is 88. At these point, colleges have access to FAFSA. Should I assume college is considering CSS and FAFSA? So if it's a school that already got your CSS profile, the FAFSA basically is a reiteration of that. Okay. Now, if they offered you $22,000 a year, they're thinking that your family can afford to spend $66,000 a year, right? So if that is not the case, right, then we need to kind of look into what happened, right? So in your particular situation, right, and I'm going to make some generalizations here. If you got $22,000 a year and $88,000, it could be a number of schools that you're applying to, right? That's 25% off, right? So that might be a good offer depending on your income or a bad offer, right? Now, let's say that your income is around 160 to $200,000 a year. That's a bad offer, right? If your income is 250 to 300, that's the $22,000 a year is not a bad offer, right? So it all depends on where your income is sitting, right? So if you did turn in the CSS early, right, and that's the number they came back with, that might be close to where it's going to end up. Okay. So if that's the case and it doesn't make sense for your family, you need to start talking to the financial aid office. Okay. All right. So thank you guys for the questions, right? Again, we will not be here next week. I know you guys will miss me, right? But for our coaching families and our families that are in financial aid secrets, right? If you have questions, please reach out to me in our Discord or in by email. And for our Facebook group, right? You can always ask questions there or message us and ask us questions there, right? There's a lot of families that ask for the replay and we reach out to them, but for some reason you guys have not set up your message or like accepted us as friends or whatever it is. And so a lot of our messages just go to your message request box and sit there just simmering. Okay. We want to send you these replays, but in order for you to do so, right, for us to send it to you, you do need to respond to us. Okay. So if you're one of our Facebook kind of group families, make sure that you're checking your message requests if you've ever asked for something or if you asked for the link for a training, right? Because if you didn't get a response from us, it's because it's in your message requests. Okay. All right. So sounds good. I hope everyone has a happy holiday season, right? I will see you guys in the new year. If you have any additional questions or if you want to sign up for consultation, go ahead and put you can text FAFSA to 949-298-6234, or you can click on that link in the chat so that you can book a consultation with us. Okay. All right. And so we'll end off with that today. I'll leave this on a little bit so you guys can take a screenshot of this page or click on the link in the chat because once I close it down, it will be gone, right? I hope everyone all the best in the new year and reach out to us if you have any questions. Okay. I'll talk to you guys all soon. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.